I never thought I would hear my own mother call my 6-month-old daughter a burden. But there I was, standing in the hallway of the house I paid for, listening to her tell my father that my child was the reason their lives were becoming miserable. It's funny how people can be so comfortable biting the hand that feeds them when they don't even realize whose hand it is. And I honestly need to know from you guys, am I the monster for what I did next, or would you have reached your breaking point way before I did? Looking back at the 3 years of silence and the thousands of dollars I funneled into their bank accounts while they treated me like a second-class citizen, I wonder if I was just a fool for trying to buy a love that was never for sale. This all started long before my daughter Lily was born, back when I was just 22, and had landed a remote software engineering job that paid more than my parents had ever made combined in their peak years. My parents, Susan and Robert, were always the type to complain about the world being against them, and when my dad got laid off for the third time in a decade, they were on the verge of losing the family home where I'd grown up. I loved them back then, or at least I thought I did, so I made a choice that I thought was noble, but ended up being my biggest mistake. I told them I had a decent, entry-level job, and that I'd help them with a few $100s a month. But in reality, I set up an automated system that covered their entire mortgage, their utilities, and their property taxes directly. I didn't want them to feel the shame of being supported by their daughter, so I let them believe they were getting by on my dad's meager disability checks and my mom's part-time retail job, while I quietly filled the gaps. For 3 years, I lived in a small apartment 2 towns over, driving a beat-up car and saving every penny while I essentially funded their entire lifestyle. They thought they were financial geniuses who had suddenly found a way to make ends meet, and I let them have that win because I wanted them to be happy. Then I met Mark, got married, and eventually we had Lily. Mark knew about the arrangement, and while he wasn't thrilled that I was keeping it a secret from them, he respected my desire to protect their pride. But everything changed when Lily was born with a few minor respiratory issues that required extra care, frequent doctor visits, and a lot of expensive specialized equipment. Suddenly, my fun money was gone, and I was feeling the pinch of supporting 2 households. I decided it was time to move back into the family home for a few months to save on my own rent while we looked for a house of our own, thinking my parents would be thrilled to have their granddaughter around. Instead, the moment we moved in, the atmosphere turned toxic. My mother started complaining about the clutter of the baby's monitors and the sound of her crying at night, even though I was the one up at 3 a.m. They treated us like unwelcome guests in a house that wouldn't even belong to them if I stopped paying the bills for a single month. My dad would huff and puff every time he had to move a stroller in the garage, and my mom began making passive-aggressive comments about how I wasn't contributing enough to the household chores now that I was a mother. It came to a head on a Tuesday afternoon when I came downstairs to get a bottle and heard them talking in the kitchen. My mom said, quite clearly, that Lily was a burden and that they were tired of their golden years being ruined by a screaming infant and a daughter who had become a leech on their resources. I stood there frozen, my heart dropping into my stomach. They thought I was the leech. They thought I was the one taking from them. So before I get into how I finally showed them the truth, I want you to pause right here and tell me in the comments, what would you have done? Would you have kept quiet to keep the peace, or would you have burned it all down right then and there? I went back upstairs, packed a single bag for Lily, and called my husband. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I waited until the next morning when the mortgage payment was scheduled to leave my account. Instead of letting it go through, I canceled the autopay. I canceled the electricity, the water, and the internet accounts that were all in my name. Then I walked into the living room where they were drinking coffee and handed them a thick folder. It contained 3 years of bank statements, every single utility bill I'd paid, and the deed to the house which I had quietly bought out from the bank a year prior to ensure they never lost it. I told them, since Lily and I are such a burden on your resources, I've decided to remove that burden entirely. My mother's face went white as she flipped through the pages, seeing the thousands upon thousands of dollars I had spent while she called me a leech. My dad tried to sputter an apology, saying he didn't mean it, but I just looked at him and said, "You have 30 days to buy this house from me at market value or find a new place to live, because the burden is officially leaving." We moved out that night into a hotel and then into our new home a week later. They tried calling, texting, and even showing up at my office to beg for their house back, claiming they were old and I was being cruel. But the utilities were already off, and the reality of their golden years, without my bank account, was finally hitting them. My brother called me a heartless person for leaving our parents homeless. But I told him if he was so concerned, he could take over the $2,500 monthly expenses I'd been covering. He went silent pretty fast after that. It's been 6 months now, and I've sold the house to a nice young couple. My parents are living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment on the other side of town, and we haven't spoken since the closing. I realize that you can't buy respect, and you certainly can't buy love from people who view your kindness as a weakness. I feel a weight off my shoulders that I didn't even know I was carrying, and Lily is thriving in a home where she is actually wanted. I've learned that family isn't about blood. It's about who stands by you when things get tough, not who tries to step on you while you're holding them up. If you think I did the right thing by cutting them off and showing them the reality of their situation, please like this video to show your support. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but I know I had to protect my daughter from that kind of negativity. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself, and please share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I go too far, or did they get exactly what they deserved? I'll see you all in the next story.